Hi.
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 How's it going?
Um, I disavow this artwork.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
We have been in
Artwork.
the process of selling this home. That's why Eric is home to say goodbye to this home.
Hmm.
And so what you see behind us is the stager artwork. And I have thoughts about her taste. I'd
Do
love
better.
to
Do better next time.
do better. So today,
What
what?
number is this?
Oh my gosh.
40.
Two?
It's 43.
What?
43.
43.
Yeah.
Yes. So this time we're being very current. We decided to see a movie that is popular and is getting a lot of traction out there. It's been out there for 1 week, I guess, or 2 weeks.
1 week.
1 week, yes. So anyway, we are going to talk today about Project Hail Mary, starring Ryan Gosling, directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who were also the producers of Spider-Verse. I should disclose ahead of time that I've read the book and Eric has not read the book because he doesn't read anymore. And then Eric's like nodding in agreement when he should be getting upset. Like,
No, I don't.
I know, but
I need to though.
you do read books when I send you a book that you know what I mean? Like when I sent you tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Remember? Yeah. So
That was the last book I probably.
maybe I should recommend more books for Eric. Maybe it's on me. Maybe I'm the one who's failing
Yeah.
here. Do you want to do the plot summary or should I?
No, I think it'd be interesting to summarize the movie from a non-reader's perspective.
Yeah,
Big problem in the world of this movie.
huge.
Some
Huge.
microorganisms are eating the sun, making it fade, and turns out humanity does kind of need the sun to survive.
Yes.
I actually was after the movie was like, couldn't they just figure out how to live without the sun? And my friend who I saw it with was like, no, you need that. No, you need that to actually live. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, big problem. And the governments of the world decide that they need to reach out to all scientists who could possibly remotely address this issue. And they stumble upon Mr. Ryan Gosling, who plays Ryland Grace, who is teaching a seventh grade class or sixth grade,
Biology.
yeah, biology, and then is pulled out for this crazy expedition.
Yes. By happenstance because of a paper that he was in disgrace with the scientific community. That
Yes,
he wrote a paper for his doctorate
yeah,
and he had this crazy theory and the scientific community disavowed him. And then it was that paper that attracted the attention of
yeah,
um what's her face?
yeah.
Eva. What's her
And
name?
I actually don't remember.
This is terrible. What are we? This is like having a podcast with, yeah, and I read the book.
Well, I
Dr.
think,
Strat.
no,
That's it. It's Dr.
yes.
Ava Strat.
Well, it fits the energy of the book, like just like vibes, honestly. That's kind of what I felt about this movie. But in any case, that's also not where we start the movie. That's where Ryland Grace's character's story starts. But the actual movie, and I'm assuming the book, starts off when Grace is already in space. Grace is in space,
Yes.
and all of his companions have died, and he also doesn't remember why he's there and
Yes.
why he's on a spaceship. But he
After the
does.
effects of long-term space travel, he's in a coma. He wakes from a coma.
Yes, things come back to him. The fastest being like that he was a scientist and he knows math and he knows things,
Yes.
and that aids him in his travels. Um, and then eventually he meets another alien life form,
Hmm.
who has traveled um, the distance he has, so that they could both fix the problems on their planet because they're both having the same issue.
Yeah.
Um, and then it becomes a story about their friendship and saving the world
Yeah. Figuring out how
and
to.
worlds.
Yes. Yeah. There's such an the microorganism is called astrophage, and then they are traveling to a star or a planet that seems resistant to astrophage. So that's the hypothesis is to find out why this planet or star, Ta Ceti, is resistant and to figure out what is the thing that's making it resistant so they can save both Arid, Rocky's planet, and Earth. Ryland Grace's planet.
Exactly.
So that is the story.
Now, going into this movie, I had like no clue what it was about. I didn't know a single thing. I didn't watch the trailer. All I knew was that Ryan Gosling goes to space. That's it. That's the only thing I knew. And I already knew that he was in a space movie, First Man.
That's right.
Um, Never seen that. So just coming in to this movie with open with an open heart and an open mind, and I'm very thankful I did because I really really enjoyed it. I'm trying to
Well, we're talking
remember.
about how we feel about the movie.
Let's just jump into it,
Okay.
it's just again vibes, the movie vibes,
Vibes.
and the
Okay, cool.
discussion for the movie vibes.
Yeah.
Or we could just establish. So now we're going to talk about how we felt about the movie. How did you feel about the movie?
No, go ahead. It's okay.
No, 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 no. I want
No,
to
no,
hear.
you. Oh, I thought you wanted to go on and
Well, no, I really liked it. And I really liked that I didn't know anything about it.
yeah.
I was just gonna say I don't. I think the last movie I watched that Ryan Gosling was in was probably Barbie. Uh,
Oh, interesting.
I don't.
Yeah, Fall Guy.
Oh, Fall Guy. Fall Guy was the last one. So the last couple movies uh, I've seen him in have been very comedic and very. He's like just um spread his wings in comedy, and I definitely was feeling that in the beginning of this movie. But then it became something entirely different for me. It was a real journey. It was an adventure more than it was a comedy. But it was very funny.
Yeah.
And it was also dazzling. It was beautiful.
So dazzling.
I
That's a great
really,
word.
yeah, I loved the imagery, and I loved more than anything the story.
Yeah.
I think it's returning to a time in movies where that was the most important part was like having a good story and not something that was like um, not necessarily something that has a happy ending, even though this does have a happy ending, but something that just feels complete and feels hopeful,
Yeah.
and especially with some of the more popular movies that come out nowadays, it just felt like a very stark contrast.
Yeah. You called it cheesy, but in a good way.
I did. In my review, I said cheesy in a good way because it just reminded me of when movies um when creators made decisions just because it was what the audience wanted to see and
Yeah.
and
Oh my
not
God, that's such a good way to describe
and not
me.
because like and not because they were trying to like put forward this huge theme or message. Like it's just people wanted to see that.
Yeah.
And I could definitely get into that, especially with the ending. But
I like your
that
honest acknowledgement of cheese and your definition of cheese, like, and of good cheese, and it's good sentiment. I like,
cheese, man.
well, no, I like the way that you define that because it's almost like we have to be a little bit sheepish about that. Not Sarah, but my other favorite reviewer from Vulture said that he thought that the movie, I think it was Bill Gay Iberi. Anyway, he thought that the movie was too anxious to be liked. He thought that it was like an anxious puppy dog always asking for pets. And he said that it should have leaned more into the actual apocalyptic implications about what would happen if, you know, Dr. Grace had failed. And I was like, why? It's literally like, why would you want that? Like, why would you want it to be darker? Why would you? And then, I was telling that to Dad, who saw the movie after me. We had to see it separately because of our senior dog. But anyway, I was telling that to Dad, and he said, there's enough dark apocalyptic movies, like really bleak apocalyptic movies. And he was like, also the book was so not that. The book is so lighthearted.
Mm.
So, okay. So you like the movie. I love what you said about giving the audience what they want, and I think that this movie is also a bona fide hit because of that. I think that people are just feeling so emotional about the movie. It was number one. It's considered to be Ryan Gosling's first really big box office hit. And so there's this whole narrative out there about how Ryan Gosling cannot open a movie because he's too quirky and he's too peculiar and sort of yeah, he's just too quirky and
He was in
offbeat.
Barbie though. What? Like,
Well, but they don't think of Barbie as his movie.
oh,
They think of
yeah,
the example being the Fall Guy.
yeah,
And then there was one other and then also because nobody saw First Man, and then the reviewer who wanted who wanted Project Hail Mary to be bleaker said, "Oh, First Man is a far more superior film because it's so dark."
Yeah.
I'm just like, what the fuck? I was like, get over yourself. But anyway, I I really liked Project Hail Mary. Do I think that it's a great film? I don't think it's a great film. Like it's not to me like an exquisite work of art, you know? And so there are movies that I will hold above it. Again, you know, we talk about the distinction between high art and mass art all the time. And I don't like to get too precious about that distinction. But there's something that's just, I hate to use this word, but there's something that's sort of more artistic and beautifully exquisite about a movie like Perfect Days, for example, or Drive My Car, you know? But that being said, I loved Project Hail Mary. I think it's just, I just think it's like those cliched phrases that they used to always put in movie trailers. This is the feel-good movie of the year. You know, run,
Yeah.
don't walk. This will make you cry. This will make you laugh. This will make you cry. So this is one of those movies that really
And
lives up to those cliched
yeah, yeah,
hyper.
cliche. And all of those sound cheesy and also like
Yes.
um just a reminder of like a bygone era. Like that's what all I
Old
felt.
fashioned entertainment.
Yes.
You know what I
When I
mean?
came away from the movie, I felt like a sense of familiarity
Yeah.
with like how it made me feel. Um and I was reminded of something like We Bought a Zoo. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like I love
He
I
loves that
I'm
film.
like top 10 fan of We Bought a Zoo. I also know it's like a cheesy mess, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like I love that movie, you
Yeah.
know, and that's it just felt like a return to that kind of movie making, which
Yes.
is great.
Yeah, I liked it so much. I thought the performances were unbelievable. I loved Sandra Hüller as Eva Strat, Dr. Eva Strat, and I loved Ryan Gosling as Ryland Grace, and I loved how they did Rocky the alien, and the fact that it was mostly puppetry. It was a combination of puppetry and animatronic, and then also some CGI put in there. So I loved all of that. But I really want to dig into what I love so much about the movies because there were some things that I just felt were thrilling, like to use your word, sort of dazzling, you
Mm.
know? And so I want to start by saying that I thought that the music was so well done, like so well done. And Eric and I have talked so much on this podcast about movies that drive me crazy when they don't shut off the score. So Thunderbolts, I was about to say Thunderbirds. Thunderbolts was that example when I went on and on about that. And I felt so emotionally manipulated as if they didn't trust the audience to feel things. Now, one could argue that Project Hail Mary was equally as manipulative with the score because they changed tone and mood all the time, right? And it was a blend of actual music for the score, and then they also used very familiar songs, you know, and so they interspersed it was almost like a James Gunn move, which is James Gunn uses like a very iconic soundtrack of, you know, classic oldies. And there were some real classics in Project Hail Mary, but in between there were also score moments. But the third thing that made it work so effectively, what am I going to say, Eric? You should tell what I'm going to.
The silence?
Silence, that's right. There was moments where they shut off the score and did not play a song to go for a trick because there was a moment where you had to listen to the actual sounds. And so Sarah in her review said whoever did the sound design should get the Oscar for this. And she used a term that I'm sure you're familiar with, but I'm not familiar with, which was diegetic sound. Diegetic. And I love that phrase. I love knowing that I know that phrase after I looked it up. But it was the sound of the glass that you could hear sort of Rocky in his little glass thing clicking around. It was the sound of like falling or like moving through the tunnel.
Tapping on the glass.
Yes, tapping on the glass. It was the sound of, you know, Rocky's language, you know, and so there were so many moments where I was noticing there were so many moments when the score was playing, and I did feel a little manipulated, but in a really good way. And then there were moments where it was silent, and I was like so focused on the action and what was happening in a way, and the so in other words, the importance of a moment or the importance of a point was communicated equally well by score, song, and silence.
Hmm.
I love you. I love you for that, Project Hail Mary. I
Yes.
love you for not being in my face about the music. And
Yeah.
you know, that was a huge frustration for you with Superman, I remember, where you just you hated like they in Superman, I liked how they reference the old score by John Williams, but they didn't use it enough, and they didn't bring, and they only used the sort of iconic signature of James Gunn in the classics. They only used that like one or two times, but in Project Hail Mary, they used the trifecta of score, songs, and silence beautifully.
I definitely appreciated that. You know, with any movies and TV shows that have to do with space, you're always going to have your space nerds that are complaining that it's not accurate to how space sounds because there's no sound in space. So
There's no sound in
and
space.
and that was actually
Nobody
something
can
I
hear you scream.
that was something I really noticed in this movie was because it hinges on um, the reality of how the science would actually work, that it stayed true to that in every design element. Like when you were talking, I was remembering when they're coming out of the planet to get the sample of the organism that's going to beat the astrophage or whatever.
Yeah,
The spaceship
tall
is just,
amoeba.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Hail Mary is just spinning out of control,
Yeah.
and you just see these shots that are just utterly silent of just the
Yes.
spinning, and then you cut into Ryan Gosling and Rocky and that the drama,
Yeah.
and you hear the score, but you also hear just like the chaos
Yeah.
of the sound and the destruction. It was a really beautiful blend. And I always felt that the timing was really right
Yeah.
for the score and for
th-
the music, and
Yeah.
it blended.
It supported the pacing
Yeah,
beautifully.
yeah. And Daniel Pemberton is the
Yes.
composer who did Spider-Verse.
I remember looking that up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
He's so great.
he has that that wonder about like his musical quality
Yes.
that like really when I was watching, I didn't know it was him when I was watching it, but it definitely I could see the similarities in how I felt between, you know, I see the spark in you scene from Spider-Verse
Yeah.
and just anything in Hail Mary.
Yes.
Um,
And we love also, we love the composer Michael Giacchino, is that it?
yeah,
Michael Giacchino. And the reason I bring him up is because the moment between Rocky and Ryland Grace, you know, that really big drama moment, which I'll try not to spoil, but that moment reminded me of the moment between Spock and Kirk
we're
and
gonna have to talk about spoilers because I
oh
want
yeah,
to talk about the ending, but
that's true.
sorry, continue.
Okay, but anyway, Star Trek. Okay, so I guess we'll talk. But anyway, they Ryland Grace in trying to retrieve the sample from the appropriate level of atmosphere of Tawseti, he almost dies basically, and then Rocky almost dies trying to save him. And there's this moment about, you know, this idea of sacrificing yourself for your friend, you know, so that both of you are on a mission to save your planet, but then you sacrifice yourself for your friend. And I will tell you that I was so choked up during that moment, so choked up, and it reminded me, and the music and the juxtaposition of the music, the diegetic sound, and then just the silence part was it reminded me of that moment in Star Trek 2 where Kirk sacrifices himself to like you know, repair that radiation, and Spock says, "Why did you do this?" And he said, "Because we are friends," you know. And at that moment, I was literally like, like sobbing and thinking what how that the theme of friendship can become so dramatic and so well worked into a moment of high action. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so that moment, there's so many movie scenes like that are high action, but are also about people sacrificing or saving each other and doing really heroic things. I'm a sucker for that, and they did that really, really well,
yeah,
and that's what I was reminded of. So Daniel Pemberton, Ludwig Göransson for Sinners, and you know, and Michael Giacchino. I'm just, you know, I think that you're amazing.
yeah. I feel like we should talk about the biggest element of the movie, I think, which is Rocky or the character Rocky. I again had no idea what was gonna happen in this movie. So when he starts meeting first of all when he sees an alien ship, I'm like, is that a fucking alien ship? Like, and then like they had that really funny chase where he's
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
running away, but it just keeps following him,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's so clearly like because when Rocky's ship tosses over a message to him, like he's thinking it could be a bomb, and I'm like, I am also stressed like about that. But like the way that he follows the ship, it's so innocent. It's
Yeah.
like I'm just gonna like follow you there. Like the fact that that is the introduction to Rocky is actually really it's something I'm realizing now is so amazing. They didn't communicate his existence through um like seeing him or seeing what they like it's showing you the biggest scope of like
Yeah.
what he was and then coming all the way down and then into the hallway where they meet for the first time and tap on the glass. And like as that was happening, I was like, there's no way this is happening right now. Because I just was so shocked, like I just didn't think that's how it was gonna go. And then like once I realized that this was going to be a story about how they become friends and how they like save their worlds together, it just made me more and more and more and more invested, and more emotional. And it just goes to show, coming away from the movie, I just like, and I'm looking at all this funny artwork, like posters of, Ryan Gosling and Rocky, like in La La Land
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like
yeah,
in
yeah,
Barbie,
yeah.
like Rocky, just as a
He's a
thing,
fully
as a
realized
design,
character.
he's a fully realized character. But if you actually objectively look at him, such a blah of a thing. Like
Yeah.
it's just like the rock with legs, you know?
I was very worried when I read in the book because he described him as a little bit like arachnid, like
Yeah,
spider-like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
was just
And he was.
I know, but I was worried that it would be
It would look
terrifying.
like that, yeah,
Yeah, and instead he was really cute.
yeah. And to
That's character
yeah,
design. That's great character design.
to introduce this thing to start caring about this rock guy,
Yeah,
and then
no face.
all the way up until you see like I mean, going into like production design and kind of design elements, like
Yeah.
to seeing just like the scuffs like on
Yes.
the rock's surface,
Yeah.
seeing like the burns, like that the damage like that he
Yeah.
took from saving Grace, like I'm looking at like this fuck inanimate object, what is actually an inanimate object, and like sobbing, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I think
There's
that
been a
the
big debate in sci-fi land about whether or not Rocky is more like R2D2 or B what is it? BR B2 B BR
C3PO.
No, no, no. The round, the rolling one.
Oh, BB-8.
BB-8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Oh, that's
yeah.
that's such a great
Yeah.
comparison.
Everybody thought that it was much more like R2D2 because a lot there's
He's sassy.
because what's his name again? Sorry.
BB-8.
BB-8. A lot of people hate BB-8. They think he's an attention hog.
They just didn't write BB-8 that well. But yeah, I
That's
the
Eric's
compare.
explanation for everything, by
I
the
know, I know.
way. Anytime you don't like a character, Eric says they didn't write him well.
Look, yeah, in comparison, comparing to the droids from Star Wars, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Because it has that same level. I mean, that's just the greatest testament to a story.
Yeah.
Is making you care about these things you wouldn't even dream of, like understanding or caring
I
about.
know we talked about this in our
Yeah.
robot episodes, and we talked about this, and Rocky is a great example of
Mhm.
that sort of like, being human or becoming human, or it's not fully, yes, there's a level of anthropomorphizing, but at the same time, it's relatable while still being a spider, a rocky spider shaped alien
Yeah.
with no face and no features to relate to.
I had a fear going into the movie just because I knew it was just Ryan Gosling in space. That's all I knew. Um,
Ryan Gosling in
yeah,
space.
is because he has such a lovable persona and face.
Yes, yeah.
Like everybody loves him, and especially the way he comes off in interviews. Like he just seems like a great person. I was worried that the movie would just hinge too much on that, and I definitely think in the beginning it was
It was a
kind of,
little bit
yeah,
like that, yeah.
because I mean after learning a lot of stuff was improv, the dialogue between him and Rocky, or just him coming up with things on the spot for the character. Like at first, some I've talked about this before, I think, but improv can sometimes come off as like lazy,
Yeah,
or just like we'll just feel it out, instead of like crafting something perfectly.
yeah,
And I do still believe that in this case, but it's like, but it's within the context of the story. Feels so like it makes a lot of sense, and
yeah. Not all of it was improv. I
yeah.
mean, not a lot of it, because I actually remembered a lot of phrases from the book. But there were some scenes added. I should also note, by the way, that the author of the book, Andy Weir, also was responsible for helping to produce the screenplay.
Hmm.
So any changes he really helped make for the translation from book to screen.
Yeah.
So he decided what needed to change. He was involved in sort of what really changed. And so that leads me to my next point, which is sort of a point about production design, but it's a bigger point than that, which is um, So I just want to say as backdrop, and I'm sure I've said this before, that book to movie translations are hard because your brain is always checking the box about what they changed. And I tend to remain open to changes. I don't care about fidelity. I care more about the mood and the animating spirit. Like, did you capture the spirit that suffuses the book? And the example that I always come up with is The Little Princess, which is one of my favorite children's books. And in the movie adaptation, in the movie version of The Little Princess, there have been several, but the most recent one was done by Alfonso Cuarón, and he changed many details of the plot, and he changed the setting, I think, too. However, because he's Alfonso Cuarón, he suffused it with the magic. Like it's a girl who's thinks that she's orphaned and she's trapped in a cruel boarding school, like with a really cruel schoolmistress, and she through her imagination she just keeps this corner of her life, where she can still pretend and let her imagination roam free. And Alfonso Cuarón captured that beautifully, so I didn't care about the plot point differences at all. What I'm amazed by with Project Hail Mary, I have to just say this, I was just shocked by this, is that the stuff that took pages and pages and pages to describe somehow got translated onto the screen, and it was more effective as a visual design. It was more effective as a storytelling device than using pages and pages and pages of words. You know what I mean? So when I was reading, I really liked Project Hail Mary. It's got a lovely tone to it, and the characters are beautifully drawn. So Dr. Eva Stratt's character is hilarious. Ryland Grace's character and Rocky's character is exactly as they appear on screen, same spirit. But there were pages and pages when they were trying to describe Rocky, his ship, the tunnel being built out, the everything. And you were just reading through pages and pages and figuring out, oh, the glass is somehow engineered out of xenonite, like all these bizarre details. And so my mind was struggling the whole time. I didn't really think about what I was seeing in my mind when I was reading the book. So then when I was watching the movie, I was like, holy crap, that is that is so much more detailed and intricate, Rocky's ship. That is so much more detailed and intricate than I could possibly have imagined from reading the book. And and also the scene that everybody keeps on talking about when they go to retrieve the sample, and Rocky Ryland Grace is outside the ship and he's in the middle of the Petrova.
Talk about stressful, bro.
Yes,
That stressed me out.
but yeah, but when
Actually, I was not sure if you would like the movie because of how stressful it was.
Yeah, but when he said he was having a moment when he was first sort of looking at Tossetti and he was looking at the Petrova line, remember when the screen turned red, And people, by the way, actually pointed out that that color red of the Petrova line with all the dots when it, converted, they said that it's the exact same color as the spectrum of an infrared microscope and an infrared telescope.
Science.
I know it's good context, I know. But I was constantly watching this thinking these filmmakers somehow translated what was pages and pages and pages onto a book into an actual, like, the ship had to look different than than Hail Mary, and the alien was described as a rocky little spider and somehow turned out to be like lovable and lovable looking. And so I just give huge props to their vision, not only of how what they designed in terms of character, in terms of ship, in terms of world building, but I also give them props in terms of how they were so intentional about the pacing and the design. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were talking about how they were trying to capture centrifugal force in a spaceship, which helps, keep a certain gravitational um, level inside of a spaceship. So it has to be spinning, but you can't overspin and you can't underspin. So they were talking about how they had to account for, that moment where Ryland Grace has to grab the sample and he's like, oh, he almost dies doing it. They were talking about how they had to figure out how to make that look like he was battling against the centrifugal force of the spinning spaceship. And so just the way that they thought about the design of the motion, the design of the sequence, and the design of how his body would play against the spaceship was freaking incredible. I'm just in awe. And I love that moment. I know you found it stressful, but when they were right in front of Tossetti, I just thought it was so beautiful.
Mm,
So, so beautiful.
yeah.
I
I
was sitting
think,
there in awe, like, and I wasn't even in IMAX. So,
yeah, I might have been.
did you go to IMAX?
No, no, not. that would have been overstimulating.
Yeah.
No, I think I was talking about when he's trying to collect the sample, not
Mm.
yeah. But that was beautiful, and I was struck by that. And it's that scene is also so great for the just the relatability of this movie, like
Yeah.
that it brings in everybody, and
Yeah.
that and that's my favorite type of thing. But like when he says like I'm having a moment,
I'm having a moment.
like
Yeah.
so real. Like
Yeah.
why wouldn't you take that? And communicating that to Rocky,
Who can't see?
who can't see, doesn't really
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. So for all of those elements you just described about the accuracy and the imagination just brought to life visually. Like it just makes so much sense to me why in terms of the story, the editing, and the pacing and everything, why it was just so like embellished on,
Yeah.
like that kind of is what I away with because ultimately it's a really long movie.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we
So
I
long.
really really enjoyed it for its entire runtime, and I also didn't feel like it was like too long, but it was long.
It
Like
was
I
really
like
long.
when coming out of it, I was like, whoa, like that was huge.
Yeah.
And it's because they just packed so much stuff into it,
So much stuff.
and
And they even left some stuff out from the book. They left a ton of stuff out.
yeah. Yeah, so I heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes a while for it took a while for it to hook me. In the beginning, I was like, this feels kind of meh, like
Yeah. It's
why do I actually care about this? And then they introduced Rocky. So obviously I'm gonna care about it. But they also just included things that people would want to see,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I said earlier, like I think the biggest example I'm thinking of right now is apparently the scene where he goes and sees Rocky's ship
Yeah.
is added. It's
Yes.
not in the book.
That's added. The
And
karaoke scene's added too.
yeah, I do know that. My friend who I saw it with said she hates seeing or watching singing in movies, so she
Yeah.
actually like covered her eyes and like and her ears.
Oh my God. I
Um
thought that was a great moment.
I thought it was
Zach really loved that moment.
I
He
thought
said
it
it was one of his favorite moments in the whole movie.
Oh, that's nice. I thought it was nice, but I like didn't need it, but it was cool. No, but the scene where he goes and sees the ship is just like the pinnacle of like, yeah, we want to see that. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah.
it's completely dark and he's just looking around. And it's just like these beautiful things that you can just barely grasp like why it is the way it is. Also just like really fun thing to like think about and see. But what really struck me about that moment was that when he was in there, you just see this look on his face that Ryan Gosling does with his performance, where he's like, I actually did it. Like,
Yeah.
and that's when they're intercutting too with the past when
Yeah, Sarah said that the flashbacks take care of all the exposition work.
mhm,
And it actually is how the book is structured too.
yeah.
And so it's not like that's very faithful to the book, but she said you avoid the exposition heavy
Mhm.
dialogue by having all those flashbacks that were actually in the
Yeah,
book.
that's one of those things that I usually cite as being a bad move,
I know.
because I love the example of, well, in Nemo, that's what they had in the structure. They have flashbacks, but then they put it all in the beginning, so you relate it to Marlin. It's a completely, I know, I love bringing that up, bringing that example up. It's like one of those
Aaron talks to
animation
me
things.
so often about exposition that I couldn't wait for him to see the Conan O'Brien Oscars exposition scene
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Sterling Brown, the Casablanca play, which was hilarious,
yeah.
by the way. So well done.
hmm
So, so well done.
but it works for the complete opposite reason in Project Hail Mary
Yes,
because honestly,
it works for the complete opposite
like
way. That's so funny.
if you were to ask the question in the beginning of the movie, like, did Ryland Grace want to go to space and do this? Like, obviously you would answer no.
Right.
Like because that just from what you glean about his character, like it seems pretty obvious. And also what maybe personally, I know a lot of people would like to go to space. I'm not one of those people. And I feel like most people are like me because it's fucking crazy and stressful and takes off years of your life. But but like you would think that, but you don't know what that feels like or what his journey was that led to that moment, and just the way that it juxtaposes with him being on the ship. He's like getting to experience this amazing, beautiful thing. Like the entire movie's like that, but him seeing the ship was just like a little like these bonus points, for him, and then seeing just the desperation of him not wanting to go, not wanting to, just because he didn't believe in himself.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that hits me.
Yeah, it
That
does.
hits, and great editing again, but also like because
Great editing.
they're embellishing on that, um, it's just so much, you know.
Yeah.
Like they're giving you so much. And part of the thing that really adds to the cheese factor that
Cream
makes
cheese.
yeah, and that embellishment is like this scene where he okay, so now he's on an alien planet teaching alien
Mm,
classes to alien like that's I apparently that's in the book, but
is
also
in the book.
like so silly. It's so I was watching that, I was like, okay, they're just letting us like have fun at this point, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um like I actually I was expecting the movie to end at a lot of points. I was expecting the movie to end the biggest, probably when Rylan Grace goes back and then sees Rocky again to save him.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was gonna end right there, like they touch and then it's over. I
Yeah.
actually honestly, if it did end there, I probably would have bumped the movie up half a star. But obviously they wouldn't do that because of the book included much more. But
Yeah. At the in the book, by the way, that last scene when he's on Erid, Rocky's
yeah.
planet, he many quite a few years have passed, and so he made that choice to have it be a one-way trip. He sent the probes, and then he went with Rocky to save his planet, and then several years passed where he almost died, and the entire planet put together their resources and thinking to keep him alive,
To keep
to keep Ryland Grace alive.
oh, okay. Yeah.
And then he got used to they so they figured out how to feed him, they figured out how to house him, they built that biodome for him. And I think that the important thing is that they didn't the reason why he didn't go why he was sort of in limbo and didn't know if he was going to go back was that because he didn't know if it would work. Like he didn't know. And so the last moment of the book, um, I think this happened in the movie too. Rocky told him that the Earth's sun had returned to full power,
Mhm.
and so that wasn't as dramatic as it was in the book. But in the book, Rocky comes and says, "We have analyzed all the data,
I
and
don't think that happened in the movie.
oh, interesting." And
Yeah.
well, the in the movie they showed that it worked because Dr. Eva Stratt was in the Antarctic doing her thing and releasing Ta amoeba to sort of kill astrophage, and so in the movie, you don't in the movie in the book you don't see Dr. Stratt again after,
Yeah.
and so all you hear is Rocky delivering the news that the Earth's sun has returned to full power, and Ryland Grace gets so emotional about that. Like he says, "Oh my God, all of this had meaning now. All of this has meaning." And then when he thinks about going home, he says, because they've offered to like send him home with adequate food, he says, I didn't know whether or not I would have a home to come home to, but now that I know that, now I realize that I have all these relationships here. Like I have you, Rocky, and now I'm being fulfilled also because he's teaching the kids. So it's not as corny in the book, you know what I mean? But it's still pretty corny.
Y- Yeah. And
It's not as corny, but it's still pretty corny.
I do think it's great. Like it sounds like they took out a lot of that drama about that stuff
Yes.
in the movie.
Yes.
Great decision, you know, because once he realizes that like he's gonna go back and save Rocky, like that's where like his true purpose is kind of like
Yeah.
really showing and makes me it felt like such a climactic resolute
Right. Yeah.
ending for the movie.
So they
So
made
to portray that with like, wait, now what do we do? Like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
made too
yeah.
much, you know.
Yeah,
So
so they made really interesting choices, as I already said, about taking pages and pages of text and visually showing you in a much more economic and dazzling way, by the
yeah,
way, efficient way.
yeah,
And then the other choices that they made were where the book is it's a very dramatic plot. You know what I mean? You're trying to save the extinction of Earth. And so what was interesting to me is that there are two moments that were really, really dramatic about in the friendship building in the book that were not emphasized in the movie, and I actually think it was a good choice. And so the first moment is when Rocky tells Ryland Grace that he's the only one who survived the trip. And then there's a really, really long explanation in the book about why that happened, like why it happened, why he traveled with so many shipmates, and because of the way that their planet is structured, and because of the way that they're built to evolve in their planet's atmosphere, they had no idea of the effects of radiation, none. So they all got radiation sickness and died, except for Rocky because he was in the part of the ship that was protected by astrophage. So that's number one. And then number two, there was this amazing moment where Rocky tells Ryland Grace that he's been alone and trying to fix this for 45 years. And so he's been by himself for 45 years. And then Ryland Grace realizes that they don't know anything about space travel and how time dilates and extends with space travel. They don't know the theory of relativity. And this made me revisit the theory of relativity, like Einstein's theory of relativity, and how space-time dilation even works. Like I was really fascinated by this. And so both of those moments were hugely dramatic, but they would have been super hard to explain to milk for dramatic potential in the movie.
Hmm.
So I totally respect the choice that they made to not dwell on that, even though they were such powerful moments in the book. So
Yeah,
I think that's crazy. I think it's crazy. I think that movie adaptations are really hard.
yeah,
And I think that they made the right choices to make us feel really good.
yeah. I mean, because it still comes across like how desperate Rocky is to like have a social
Mhm.
connection to like to Ryland Grace at all times,
Yes.
all hours of the day,
Yeah.
watching him sleep. Um,
That's a
and
thing. That's
and
a norm.
so which they're able to just communicate like that element of
Yes.
the drama of how lonely he was, like by taking that away too,
Yes.
when he becomes injured and then is immobile,
I
you
know,
know.
and people keep on calling out that line when Rocky reveals that he has a mate,
Yeah,
and he says, and he's been with her. He's 200 years old or whatever.
not enough, he
He
said.
said
Yeah.
not enough.
Oh
Oh,
my God,
I,
dude. This is a rock. Rock is making me cry right now, bro. Um,
I sort of think, by the way, harkening back to what those critics said about how this wasn't dark enough or apocalyptic
yeah.
enough. I said to Dad because I was so annoyed by this comment. I was just like, I thought that E.T. growing up, E.T. was such a powerful film for me. I was 11 years old when I saw E.T. and it was one of the first movies that I mean, I cried a lot at movies even as a kid, but E.T. I like wept buckets at the end, like buckets. And I was like, oh, he wasn't like, would this critic have said, you know what? E.T. should be like, there should be this apocalypse coming, and E.T. is saying, no, I can't phone home because they're all going to come and shoot you and extinguish the human race. You know what I mean? So it seems so dumb. Like, why can't you just let us feel good? Why can't you just let us fall in love with Dr. Grace and with Rocky and just be happy?
Yeah.
Especially in these dark times.
Yeah.
Suck it.
This movie's gotten a lot of love, and that's really great to see. And you know, I don't know why. I mean, I care. I really care about having critical thinking.
Yeah.
I was gonna say critical discussions, but honestly, critical thinking
Yeah.
because all-time low probably right now, critical thinking skills. And
Yeah.
like some, I follow cinema creators or people who care about movies, and one of them was describing how he really loved the movie, really enjoyed it, just had like certain issues that didn't, make it all the way there. It's like when you at the beginning of this episode when you said it's not a great movie, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it is great. Like so I love when there's room for that discussion. But it's just the discourse is so vitriolic, I think, when it
Yeah.
comes to
So
that. Like
poisonous.
the people
So
like
toxic.
it wasn't even a big point that he was making about criticizing the movie because he was like, overall, I really loved it. I just wish this whatever. And
Right.
then all the comments are like, just say you didn't understand the movie. Just say like you just hated the movie. Like completely assuming like their take on it.
Yeah.
And
I
just
think it should be a movie that's polarizing, by the way.
it is it also. It's like not even
It's just like a warm bath of a
yeah.
movie.
Um,
And it's about hope and it's about humanity and it's about collaboration and
yeah,
partnership. It's also about not assuming the
yeah,
worst. And so I mean, if you think about the number of times that aliens are portrayed as world destroying,
yeah,
like giant carnivorous
yeah. Thank
fucking
God.
hunter predators, like they're just dying to kill us.
Yeah.
If you think about the number of times that has been portrayed in movies that way, just to have it's by far in the minority to have interspecies collaboration that is
Oh, yeah.
different. So like why not? Why
Yes,
not?
why not? Great. And it wasn't even dwelled on in this movie. It was like, oh, is that a bomb? Oh, it's not. Okay, we're chill.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and I mean, he was scared. Actually, I did jump when Rocky like comes out and
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
I did jump. But
Yeah.
like, that's like the innocent fear,
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
a let's like let's really dive into this psychological
Yeah.
horror. It's like we don't need to do that.
Yeah.
And people really so anyways, people should just shut up in that respect. But I will
Obviously,
say
isn't a
like
polarizing movie.
I will say though, like this, it's such a giant movie. You know, it's just very
It's
big in
big.
scale, big in length,
It
whatever.
is big.
And so much beautiful technical work was done on it. Like just in the book itself, because Andy Weir is very obviously like interested in science, wants things to be accurate
Yeah.
within the story,
Yeah.
but also faithful in the movie, the way it's portrayed, and even things taken out or things not explained. Um, like still it needs to make sense. And watching the movie, I've said this before, I am very stupid. Like I miss things all the time, you know? Like the question about like, oh, can't they just solve the problem of not having the sun? Like like this is how stupid I am, right? And but the thing is like when a movie can include these things or these explanation this exposition that is necessary
Right.
without bogging down the actual emotional story that's happening,
Yeah.
that's something I really
Res
really care about,
Me too.
respect and care about.
I
And
respect too. I
yeah,
agree with you 100% of that.
there will always be time rewatches or analyses, criticism, like to go back in and just look at how actually everything works, like I obviously ideally in my ideal perfect movie, like everything makes sense to me,
Yeah.
but for the people that actually love science and the realistic portrayals of what's going on, like they can understand it as it's coming in, but they could also just look it up after, like
Yeah.
that's when a movie can open up like a world of interest into specific topics, like that's when it's really engaging and cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's not just with this movie it's science, but with other movies it's literally entirely fictional worlds that don't exist,
Yeah.
and you like want to know the specifics of, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
people get
weird.
really into it.
All of our talk about sound and visual design and everything like that actually just makes me think that when we build our or find our media room on the East Coast. I can't wait
You
to
are
see.
obsessed with the
I'm so obsessed with having a
uh,
media room, but I can't wait to see this on my big home screen.
mm,
And just watch it again and like to be blasting the like subwoofers and like surround sound
subwoofer. Yeah.
subwoofer. Anyway, I really am excited to see this movie again when a little time has passed. The one thing I wanted to talk about, which we haven't talked about, is that I got kind of a not great. As you know, I love the first Spider-Verse movie so much. I think it's a perfect movie.
Hmm.
I rated it 5 stars. And then I heard with the second movie that Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were. I heard that there was an article about how they were giant pains to work with. And the reason why is because, and we've talked about this many times, but sometimes directors ask for things or they have a vision for things and they have no idea how to do that. They don't have any idea how to execute it. So they come up with crazy angles, crazy shots, crazy design ideas, or crazy action sequences, and they have no clue. They don't have enough connection to the animators, to the people who are actually like drawing and coding these things
Yeah.
to actually make it real. And so, one of my favorite things about our episode about Kung Fu Panda, and where you talked about how they achieved that sort of 3D perspective, when you were looking at the scenes from above, you said that they basically drew out like a 3D world, so that they could look at it from different angles in the design of it. And so it was frustrating to me that Phil Lord and Christopher Miller didn't do that, and they were passing on all of their lack of knowledge. They were their idea after idea after idea about things to do, and but yet they were not solving the problems for the people who actually had to execute on their vision. Does that make sense? So I
Yeah.
I imagine that in many cases a director and also a director of photography and a cinematographer, I think that what they do sometimes is they solve problems, you know what I mean? So they take a story and they figure out like this is what the pacing has to be, this is how it has to be shot, this is how it has to be framed. And so I was annoyed at reading these articles about, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller that they weren't doing that. They were driving people crazy on the Spider-Verse movies, and people were just like, "What the fuck? They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they keep on asking us for crazier and crazier things, and we're constantly doing redos, and they're constantly changing their minds." And a movie is a project. You know what I mean? Like you have to have a budget, you have to have a schedule, you have to, you know what I mean? You have to stay on task. So I had sort of a mixed impression, but I didn't have an impression that they were jerks. I just think that they were not experienced. But I think that with Project Hail Mary, for judging from everything I heard from the set, I think that they were so enthusiastic and had such a good partner in Andy Weir in terms of figuring out how to translate the book to the screen. So I have to say that the sort of uncertainty that I had about Phil Lord and Christopher Miller was a little bit washed away because they delivered such a great happy movie for me to see, and it's such a big movie, like a big movie on a monumental scale, and so I think, in other words, that whatever the rumors are about their struggles and their constant reshoots and their constant like redos, whatever their past history has been, I kind of felt like Project Hail Mary was a forgiveness thing for me. Like it was a bit of there was a bit of forgiveness going on. Like, okay, I now am open to you guys again. And now the third Spider-Verse, which is going to happen in like 2036 or whatever the hell is going to happen. They keep on pushing back the release date and they keep on like not
Did you
committing.
see the news? I think it was today or yesterday, where Phil Lord said, "Oh, you're gonna see something soon-ish for Spider-Verse." Did you hear? They released some images too.
Yeah. I love them because they have such I I think the word innovative is such a hacky word and so overused and so many people claim to be innovative. But I really do think that Christopher Miller and Phil Lord are innovative,
Mhm.
and I think that they, with their, just like how I feel about Ryan Coogler on a different scale,
Hmm.
but if you, Spider-Verse and Project Hail Mary alone, they it puts them right up there for me with like Denis Villeneuve and you know and Ryan Coogler, just directors who can tell a story but have such visual chops, like such amazing ideas about how to bring something to life.
Yeah.
And having read the book first, that makes me even more impressed that they brought so many elements of that book to life.
Hmm.
So I am now on a penance tour with Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. But anyway,
There's a lot of things that are swirling around in my head right now.
yeah.
Mostly having to do with adaptations in general.
Mm,
Like they had a full completed book for this movie.
yes.
That's like a hell of a roadmap. And uh it is crazy that adaptations can be so bad when you have that. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like if you care about this thing, this story that you hold in your hands, like you would think like even if it's very difficult, you would like still do a good job because people love this thing. Um and there's the same you could say the same about Dune and even I mean even Spider-Verse like that's based on a comic book character.
Yeah, Miles
So that
Morales.
so
That's like huge that they succeeded in bringing
yeah.
like one of the most iconic Spider-Mans of all time to
Hmm.
life through Miles Morales, you
Yeah.
know?
But with Miles Morales, like they had much more openness with
Yes, interpret
how they
it.
could interpret
That's
it. So
right.
that probably was why you could just come up with ideas like
Yeah,
willy-nilly,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But Hail Mary had an ending.
Yes.
Like there was always a North Star you could just go to. Um I'm also thinking of sorry. I'm also thinking about
That's
like
okay.
uh just the fact that we latch on to movies like this because they're events.
Yeah.
They're very because they're popular, they reach a super wide audience, but also because um we can all go to we all have to go to the theater to see it because that's the only place you see it. And I just saw a video the other day. I don't know how related this is, sorry, but that I saw a video the other day
You're the
of
editor.
I
I'm
saw
gonna cut this all
yeah,
out
I guess
later.
no, that's a good point, yeah. I saw a video the other day of a guy saying or responding to people saying that the Dune trilogy is gonna be like the new Lord of the Rings trilogy, like for this generation or this like. And he was arguing no, that is not at all what's happening because Lord of the Rings was was special. Not only were they faithful adaptations to the original source material, but you got one every year is what he said. You got one a year. Like you you knew that like around Christmas time, like you were going to be going to the theater to see Lord of the Rings
That's so funny.
because the next movie would be coming out. So,
Yeah.
but that's not the case with movies now. We're having to wait a decade for the next Spider-Verse
Yeah, it's
when it's like
gonna take so long.
with how crafted those with how well crafted those movies are,
Yeah.
you would think that again you have this roadmap or like you have the story, you have something to work towards.
Yeah.
But because of the pressure, studio pressure, and then like just anything marketing related, like
Yeah.
it just there's so much that could go wrong.
Yeah, so much that can
And
go wrong.
and has gone wrong for so many other franchises and movies and things. So
Yeah.
it's just such an interesting thing. I like everybody if you were to ask them like would you want another Lord of the Rings type event obviously like but how can you replicate that it
Yeah.
is it's a big task
Yeah.
it's
This
it's it's something that's very interesting.
I think if I were in the filmmaking business, which I'm not, I think that I would be terrified to take on projects at the scale of Dune and at the scale of Project Hail Mary and at the scale of Lord of the Rings. I think you need to be
Hail
like
Mary, to be fair, is smaller because it's a book. It's just this one kind of original story.
yes,
So,
it's smaller. It's smaller.
well,
It's very sweeping though. I mean, it takes place across the universe, you know? There's so much science packed into it. Anyway, we don't have to
yeah.
argue that point. But anyway, my point is that to 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 do movies that need to be visual spectacles and also really hit your emotional beats, I think is one of the I would find that to be super daunting. And so I felt like the second Spider-Verse almost burned my eyeballs out because it was too much visual spectacle and it was too kinetic and too frenetic, to use those words together. And so, but the relationships between Miles and his family and Miles and Gwen were still being, I still felt them. They were very tangible. And there was that moment with Gwen and her father too in a different universe, you know. And so I think that I think that filmmakers who can hit these emotional beats, you know, and then don't screw it up, like don't screw up the tone, don't screw up the pacing, don't screw up the characterization. The right people are cast. This was the first year that there was a casting Academy Award, and everyone felt that it was so long overdue. And I completely agree with that because I think casting directors are genius. I think that Sandra Hüller as Eva Stratt was amazing, and I know that you've seen her in other films. You've seen her in Zone of Interest.
Mhm.
And so I just think she's amazing. She
Yeah,
does her,
she has range. Wow.
yeah, she does her stoicism so, so beautifully, like so beautifully. And then she just reveals enough when she's in a particularly
Yeah.
emotional moment, you know?
And yeah.
So anyway, I guess I'm really impressed. We've always talked about this with respect to Ryan Coogler, that he could make the small, intimate films and then the big films like Black Panther and Sinners. I also I do have a deep fondness for Phil Lord and Christopher Miller because of the fact that they can make movies that feel so emotional, where I feel I it's not even just that I'm rooting for the characters, I'm invested in the characters. I'm invested in Miles Morales. I was invested in Ryland Grace. I was invested in Rocky, and I think that that's a huge gift. And I think it's what Spielberg used to be truly known for, by the way. Like that used to be Spielberg's signature is to make you like pick characters, except when he goes too far and he just tells you how to feel about them all
That's
through his
true.
little motifs, you know. But other than that, I do agree that Spielberg in his sort of ET days, you know, and his Raiders of the Lost Ark, I feel like you were along for the ride and you gave yourself over to the watching the movie
Mm.
because the movie was there to take you on a ride.
True. Yeah.
Why can't we have that anymore? I don't know.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're reaching the end of our discussion, but I would like to maybe talk a little bit just about somebody we haven't talked about, who's Ryan Gosling. What do you feel about Ryan Gosling? Because honestly, I'm a little on the fence about like I don't know. He to me, he's such a like regular guy to me. I know he's like hot as fuck or whatever,
I don't have that feeling
I
about
know
him.
he's hot, he's funny, he's charming. He was in all these giant, movies. Some of them like cult classics, others are just huge hits. Um, what do you think about him as an actor?
I think he's a really good actor. I think the only thing that makes me say that he's maybe not a great actor is because there's always like a little wink, wink, twinkly character quality to him that I think he uses to great effect, but it's a little bit twee and a little bit self-conscious,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
He's a little it's that sort of postmodern smirk is what I would call it. It's the postmodern smirk, like, are you in on the joke? Because we're all in
Yeah.
this joke together, you
Yeah.
know? And
And
so
a lot of people are saying under these comments of clips of Ryan Gosling that he's like what Ryan Reynolds wants to be.
yeah, yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
what everybody's saying. And
I agree with
I
that
totally
actually.
understand where they're coming from
Yeah,
with that.
I do too.
Because he does seem very aware, like
Yeah.
aware of what he does and what he can do.
I don't find
Sometimes,
him attractive,
okay,
but I would like to, but he does seem like he'd be a really good friend.
yeah, yeah.
And my favorite roles of Ryan Gosling's are Lars and the Real Girl and Crazy Stupid Love. And then now,
Oh, I
and
haven't seen that. Yeah,
even Project Hail Mary, I would not say is one of my favorite roles of his. I just think he did a really good job.
yeah. There's something about like if you compare him to like Timothy Chalamet, like who I don't like, by the way, but
I think he's a good actor though.
he is a great actor and he fully commits, you know.
Yes.
There's something about Ryan that feels a little less committed. So
Yes,
that
because
he
he's got that postmodern smirk.
Yeah, but and it's because he maintains like a familiarity with the audience, which sometimes works to the advantage of the movie, which I think worked for Hail Mary,
Yeah.
um, making him seem like this regular guy.
Yeah.
Um,
I did not like him in La La Land, for example.
yeah,
I did not believe I liked La La Land the movie, but Ryan Gosling in that movie did not his whole thing as as an aspiring jazz pianist who wanted to own his own club, the sort of crushed dreams, the crushed dreams, the can you fall in love when you're pursuing your dreams in such a singular way? He brought me nowhere near heartbreak for that. Like,
mhm,
I wasn't even that heartbroken when they didn't end up together
yeah,
at the end. It was terrible. But like La La Land, and when they were like when they had that like big moment at the end where they looked at each other and what could I was like, eh.
yeah,
So yeah, that's a sign of Ryan Gosling. But
yeah.
but I loved him in Lars and the Real Girl.
Mhm. He definitely he makes me think about because I think he's done everything right. You know,
Yes.
there's nothing he's done that I would fix necessarily. But
It is funny. Yeah.
it's just so interesting comparing him to other actors. Like just saying right now that he's like a regular guy, like reminds me of when of my flip on Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like I used to hate him because he seemed very robotic. But then when I rewatched or when I watched the first Spider-Man, he just seemed very uh kind of like base level relatable and grounded.
Yeah.
Um and but then there's also actors who like are so unique that they when they inhibit a character um or inhabit a character it's like uh it just becomes something else entirely. It's something crazy and like
Yes.
otherworldly like Willem Dafoe, you know.
Yes.
So it's just so interesting comparing. And
I know it is interesting.
given the projects he's done now, like Lars and the Real Girl is like one of the more out there like crazy ones. Um, but then like, you know, more mainstream kind of normal things like Fall Guy and Barbie, like I do have high hopes for his future, you know,
Yeah.
because I think this was just such a great project and he's doing really great stuff.
Yeah.
It's just really great entertainment, you know.
Yes, I agree.
It might be a difference between like entertainment and art, you know. Like
Mhm.
he still is an artist and a great one, but
I think he's a
yeah.
great actor. I like him a lot. I
Mhm.
think he definitely has that smirk going on, an ironic distance is what I would call it.
Yeah.
But I would say that Vulture did a ranking of all of his performances, and the movies that they ranked the top were not ones that I had seen. So I haven't seen Blade Runner 2076, is it?
2849.
2040. Completely got that wrong. Blade Runner 20 something.
Yeah.
And then they ranked that really high and they ranked First Man really high. And then they also ranked
So let's see.
I know I haven't seen Blade Runner, I haven't seen First Man, and then I also have not seen Half Nelson, which I actually think that he was nominated for an Oscar for Half Nelson. So, but I have seen him in The Notebook. He was great in The Notebook. It's a very that is bad cheese, not
Yeah.
very cheese. That's bad cheese, and it's
Yeah.
that's an example of bad cheese versus good cheese. But anyway, But he was great in The Notebook. Like he really holds the screen with his presence, and then as this sort of sincere, yearning lover,
Yeah.
and as I said, Lars and the Real Girl is my favorite, and Crazy Stupid Love is just it's so funny. So anyway, I think but I was interested because people kept on pointing to this issue of Ryan Gosling not being able to open a movie because of the failure of Fall Guy. And now everybody's breathing this sigh of relief, like, oh, thank God, he's had a hit. He's had a bona fide hit.
Again, writing issue. Fall Guy was not written super well,
Um,
but Hail Mary was. So
yeah,
writing,
writing
guys,
comes down to writing.
just
That's
listen
right.
to me.
That's right.
Listen to me.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm happy. I'm happy that we saw the movie. I'm happy that
Are
we.
you gonna, we gotta have some episodes where you end the episode and you're like, I'm not happy I saw this
Oh,
movie.
there
Because
will be
every ep
times. Well, actually, that's not true. Like some of our most fun discussions have been for movies that are terrible, like Craven.
but you'll still say, I'm happy we saw it. Like
Yeah.
I'm happy we got out there.
We should come up with movies that we are so sorry that we saw. That's what we should do. We should come up with movies that are so bummed that we saw.
Yeah. I know there are movies where you're like, I could have gone without seeing that. That's what you would say, I feel like.
Those are usually the disturbing ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I think movies are like books. I try to force myself sometimes through a book I don't like just to find out what happened. And I've seen plenty of like movies that made me furious because the writing is lazy or it's really poorly put together.
Hmm.
Actually, some of the Marvel movies post Avengers have, I'm really sorry that I saw. There are some movies that I do regret seeing, and there are some movies that I regret seeing because they were so harrowing to watch, like super, super
I
harrowing.
love how I call you out on this, but I can't say there are not really movies I regret seeing,
Yeah.
but like, except for, I mean, but movies like that, I do regret. Like, I don't finish. I usually get like halfway through. The most recent one I can think of is the second Jurassic Park. Was so bad that we shut it off.
So anyway, this was fun. It was fun to watch a movie. I was so choked up during the movie
Me
and
too.
there were a few moments where like tears spilled over and started flowing, but I didn't go into full on sobbing mode until I met Dad afterwards. He was waiting for me at that Whole Foods afterwards with Jack. And he goes, "Did you like it?" And then all of a sudden I went, "Yeah." I felt like I had all these pent up
Oh
emotions,
wow.
because of number one, also because even though I knew what happened in the book, I was still waiting to see the resolution at the end of the movie. So I got all choked up, and then I really started to sob a little bit because I had to let out all the tension of, wanting them to save their worlds, wanting them to be alive, hoping that Earth would be okay, hoping that Rocky would be okay, hoping that Ryland Grace would be okay. So, yeah. I am really happy that we saw this movie, and I am really glad that you made it home this weekend to say we have loved living here. Next time if we manage to podcast again in April, maybe once more, but we're going to be switching locations very soon, and there's a sadness to it, even though we feel like this is the right decision, to leave California. But I'm really happy that we had this time doing this podcast from here.
Sort of poetic, like Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary. Your own Project Hail Mary is going back to the East Coast.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah.
very harrowing, very brave,
I don't
very
know how brave
brave.
it is, but yeah. I anyway, I love you, Eric.
Love you too.
Yeah.
And great movie.
Yeah.
Would recommend.
Would recommend.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.